if you pay attention to the lore of Genshin at all, no doubt you've heard the name Perinhari. It's this book from version 4.5 that every theorist is losing their minds over. Plenty have done a good job of making a comprehensive breakdown. So if that's what you're looking for, you might want to look elsewhere, because that's not what we're doing today. No, my friend. Rather than explain things, I want to ask questions. I have many questions and only a few answers, but stick with me to the end. Trust me, it gets good. You know why? Because Genshin is fond of patterns and have a habit of making us feel bad for vanquishing our foes. This is a theory video, but it has nothing to do with Arlie. Surprisingly, though anyone interested in Khaenri'ah might want to pay attention, because I have reason to expect these ideas to land close to the future story points. This is a leak-free zone. Any and all speculation presented here is entirely of my own madness, and is currently unaffected by future patches. This is Kraken, and I'll be trailblazing for us all today. Many have focused on the allegorical significance of the story, and yes, we will be doing a little of that today. However, when I finally read the book for myself, I approached it with a different idea in mind. The book Perinhari has a different name, and that's Hleobrant in a Marathi, meaning Hleobrant's love. Now, the first volume hardly says 2 words about this Hleobrant, and the main character of the book is clearly Perinhari. So my first question was, why is Hleobrant's love the purpose of the story? To briefly summarize, the book talks about a guy, Perin, who's adopted by a nation, becomes a knight, then whose best friend, fellow knight Leo, falls in love with a foreigner and slowly loses his mind over his love for her. Look, I said if you're here for a breakdown, you're looking in the wrong place. Anyways, I believe the whole reason the story can be dubbed as Leo's love story, even though the first half doesn't hardly talk about him, is due to the perspective. Perin's perspective. He's the one relating the story about his friend. And because Perin is also a foreigner, and that is relevant to the end of the story, it's important to tell. Hleobrant was allured by a woman who is later described as the idea of freedom, or possibly she was the personification of freedom. So, reading the story a second time, I replaced every mention of this Angelica girl with the word freedom. Don't judge my caveman methods. Surprisingly, though, the tale is comprehensive told either way. Now, freedom, as we know, is the core belief of Mondstadt. I'm dubious at claiming this is Mondstadt relevant, but we'll get to that. Now, what it does tell us is that Leo was enamored by an ideal, one that Perin had from the start. This pursuit of freedom became so important to Leo that he abandoned his post, his king, his nation, etc. Because earlier in the story, other people are sent out on expeditions away from the nation and come back unfazed. Yet Leo was cursed for simply crossing the border. The difference was his mindset. But I feel that love is significant for another reason. Does love being a curse sound familiar? Well, it should. After all, that's how the Seelie are described. If they fall in love, they will degrade into nothing more than a husk. Look, I know this story makes it sound like Leo turned into a hilly churl, not a Seelie, but this is where I remind you that the story has been passed down through the generations, and likely not fully intact. Details. Who needs them? Whether this story is a tale of betraying one's beliefs, or another instance of a love curse, well, either are of interest to you lore lovers. Angelica is the name of Leo's love interest, which we're given her name meaning, one who is as a divine emissary. The book also makes a point of telling us this is not a Leoan name, even though her nation is ascribed to have been defeated by Deus Ari. If you don't know, we mean Zhongli. However, this confuses me, Because why are we implying that Angelica should have a Liyuan name when Angelica was not from Liyue? Possibly the region, but still. Her nation was defeated by the ruler of Liyue. And if you know anything at all about Morax, he fought like a boss in war times. Really, this doesn't narrow our options in the slightest, as he's recorded to have defeated Orobashi, the Lord of Chenyu Vale, Osayo, the Che in Chinksa village, and many, many more. I really feel like every nation we visit has some tale or another of Morax bullying another entity. He's got his fingerprints all over to that. Anyways, Angelica is from, well, somewhere, probably not Liyue. Her other suggested name, though, does mean Lady of Wondrous Sound, which just makes me think of music. And music plus freedom? Well, you should be side-eyeing Venti something fierce. Not that we have record of Morax defeating anyone from Mondstadt. Yet. But Angelica is more or less of Latin origins. In Genshin terms, that would be a nation older than Khaenri'ah. The implications of that get messy, so I'm not touching that. You can't make me. Looking up Cleobrant gave me absolutely nothing. However, Leibrand, or Liutbrand, is a name of Old Germanic origins, which means either Flame of the People or People's Sword. Ultimately a name for nobility. This matches the knightly image. And as we know, Mondstadt is inspired from Germany. Moving on. Now, Perinhari means keeping or taking care of in Pali, a language from India. Alternatively, it can mean avoiding or shunned in Sanskrit. However, I think the more significant meaning of the name is from Latin origins. Perin is Latin for beautiful angel or water angel. And Ari, or Arum, can mean prophet, which really just sounds like the meaning for Angelica. And if you think of it, it's not too surprising of a notion, as both Angelica and Peri were not from Khaenri'ah. I do wonder, though, if the names were given by Khaenri'ahns. I know the book says the girl called herself Angelica, but again, this story was passed down through generations. Whether these names are true to the people or made up by the storytellers, who's to say? But this is funny, because basically all of our three characters have themed and generic names. Their names are literally a description of what or who they are. Because remember, Khaenri'ahns thought that people who fell into their nation were of divine origin, or capable of divinity. Now, here's where the speculation gets speculating. The story dropped this lore bomb in revealing that there was another dynasty besides the Eclipse Dynasty, the Crimson Moon Dynasty. Well, I'm here to tell you that there shouldn't be two dynasties. Oh no, there should be three. Granted, I have nothing to base this on but an itch in my brain. Let me explain. Remember what I said about Genshin loving their patterns? Well, one we've seen time and again is the rule of three. Therein stating that something good has to happen 3 times before you get results, technically the 4th. Another and more juicy by far is the 3 Moon Sisters, wherein stories tell us of 3 sisters, or 3 moons, that had a bad falling out where 2 died and 1 hid away in a sky palace. Well, we now have confirmation about 2 different moons, and now I'm starting to suspect the tale of the Moon Sisters to be an allegory of ancient nations of Teyvat. So the 2 moons so far are red and black, and according to Dane, the eclipse is swallowed by the crimson moon, meaning that these 2 sister nations had beef. The result being that both nations are pretty much dead. Then we have a third, whose corpse is said to be hanging in the sky. Well, I mean, we do have a perpetual full moon in the sky, but I believe this instead means Celestia. Yes, I am claiming that Celestia was the third ancient dynasty. And before you tell me that Celestia is not a kind of moon, I will tell you that a moon is considered a celestial body. Besides, I'm not the only one who's convinced that that floating island up in the sky is pretty much empty, or rather a husk. Now, the reason that Celestia likely wasn't directly involved in the war between Eclipse and Red Moon, I'm guessing it's because of their size. I mean, just look at it. Does this look like a place that can produce a massive army to throw at a war? It's like the size of the Jade Palace, I think. Can it really be called a nation at that point? Well, absolutely. Plenty of small islands can and are considered nations or countries in their own right. It's not unusual. So if a small nation has resources or even a service to offer, perhaps like being priest, or if they can offer knowledge or technology, they can still thrive as a nation. Now, as far as patterns, I want to point out another. Genshin's love of foreshadowing. No, I'm not talking about the book Perinhari. I mean Mondstadt. All the way back at the beginning of the game, we get a little world quest named Break the Sword Cemetery Seal from Dr. Livingstone. I know it's been a while, so let me refresh your memory. In Dadaupa Gorge, the Sword Cemetery is protected by 3 seals, guarded by 3 hilly troll tribes. The Meaty, Sleepy, and Eclipse tribes. Now, I could go into depth by trying to assign meaning to every little detail of this quest, but instead I'll share what I found of the most interest. First, I define the tribes by their qualities rather than their names, because there is not a Meaty or a Sleepy dynasty. So to start, Meaty to me means consuming. This could be applied to knowledge, power, or anything really. The need to take and conquer. They value power and resources. Also, they feel very warlike in the fact that they keep an arena. For the Meaty tribe, I'm assigning it to the Crimson Moon Dynasty. Next, the Eclipse tribe are traditionalists. All their members know how to draw and the meaning of the Eclipse symbol as taught by the Sama trolls in the clan. They're structured and organized, but also this is the only tribe that has an abyss mage guarding its monument. Surprise, surprise! I'm assigning them to the Eclipse Dynasty. As a side note, whether the Eclipse Dynasty had connections to the Abyss before or after their fall, it lines up with the lore we know. The Eclipse is connected to the Abyss. Finally, we have the Sleepy tribe. I describe them with the word inactivity, which is just a fancy way to describe sleep. Of the 3, they have the most sentries stationed around their monument. But if you infiltrate at night, they're all sleeping. So last but not least, I assigned them the Celestial Dynasty. They do fight when threatened. Perhaps this is through automated means. But ultimately, they're inactive, both in the War of the Moon Sisters and currently. Now, a couple of other things I found of interest in ways of symbolism is first the 3 seals. The 3 tribes protected the Sword Cemetery. Now, this is a creepy idea, but I wonder if this represents the world. Because when the moons fought, the world was thrown into chaos, which makes Teyvat the graveyard. So either everyone in Teyvat is dead, or maybe this grave is just a monument for the fallen Hilly Trolls clans. But along this idea, I'll tell you something that disturbs me. If you consider Traveler to be the only one living in a world of the dead.
Listen to some of these lines from the Black Serpent Knights in the Chasm. Rathel. Why do you tarry in this place, traveler? There is only death here, only memorials to injustice. Void, emptiness, everything is void. Edgetho. Companion of that tyrant fate, the traveler known as Calamity. No one remembers that which has passed away. Sir Keir, envoy of the heavens, allow me to greet you with a vengeance. A hollow victory over despair is the greatest dejection of all. Bullywith, craven trespassers, the majestic one's dark curse is inescapable. In death, there is awakening. Some of these nights do talk about the Skynail, but these are the lines about death. Does this not sound like warnings to the living? Whether we take this literal or not, I'm already convinced all of Tibet is a dream.
And dreams are found in sleep, and sleep is likened to a death-like state. Besides, if someone sleeps forever, like in a coma, they will eventually whittle away to the point of death. Same difference.
And this scene of 3 monuments protecting a location is something we've seen in Enkanomiya. The 3 Realms Gateway Offering event emphasizes this. There, we had to fix and activate the towers in 3 locations to dispel the darkness obstructing the entrance, and to access the Dainichi Mikoshi. Again, 3 protects the 1. Plus, this civilization is more ancient than Khaenri'ah.
The other thing I find interesting is Dr. Livingstone. I'm not gonna lie to you, I hate her. And I hate her packages. I was content when I thought she had no significance, but now I don't know, and I hate it more. Anywho, Livingstone, or a stone that is living, has meaning as far as elemental creatures. It could be a reference to the hearts of elemental life forms that crystallize into stone when they reach a cresting point of power. Or it could mean the Skynails. Or it might even be the Sinner, a literal living stone that idly sits by and watches us work our butts off. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't know what it means in light of 3 dynasties, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some bigger meaning to it. Her and Edith, there's something there, but I refuse to think any more about it.
I do have to wonder though, since Natlan should be the next destination on our list, was the Crimson Moon Dynasty stationed in that area? If we're getting teased on it now, well, it's worth thinking about. I offered a lot of possibilities here and didn't do much in the way of tying up my loose ends. The implications created by these ideas are complicated and likely to be messy, so I fully intend to make a follow-up theory. However, this video is already long enough for me, so I'll wrap it up here.
Regardless, if you subscribe to these ideas or not, there's lots of interesting concepts to chew on. And if Celestia ends up not being the 3rd dynasty, I still think there's a 3rd somewhere. It's just too coincidental to not be the case, but I had to present some ideas about Perinhari. So whatever ideas this video gave you, enjoy savoring this brain stew. This is Say No to Kraken, and thank you for watching. Also, sorry if my voice is weird, it's allergy season here.